I have Vitale Buford here, and she's a crisis expert. And I found your story to be really relatable because so many people go through these sort of things. And so I'll let you tell your story. But do you want to tell us first a little bit about what you do?
Yeah. So I'm a coach, but my focus is a crisis expert. And so what I do is I help women through their crises. And to me, not living your life to its fullest potential is a crisis. So if you are stuck in a job that you don't like, if you are in a relationship that is unfulfilling and toxic potentially, if you are going through the motions, if you wake up in the morning and your chest is heavy and you are just not living your life, that is a crisis. And for me, it's really the woman who is about to turn 40 or who has just turned 40, and it's this coming of age. And so I help women through their crisis.
Wonderful. So your story is all about you overcoming your own crisis. So
Right.
I will let you tell your story. But one of the things that I found particularly suspenseful was just the leading up into when you said it, because it was one of the more suspenseful stories in the book, I thought, leading in. So I appreciated that. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what happened with you?
Right. So growing up, I always thought that I needed to be perfect to be loved. And to me, perfection meant really thin and really high achieving. And I grew up in a fairly dysfunctional home. My mother is an alcoholic. And so this idea of perfection is what gave me tension and love. And so I always just tried to attain it. And as you know, perfection isn't possible. So I was trying to achieve the impossible for most of my life. And when I was a senior in college, I had gained weight. I was always really good in school, but I just had to work hard. I wasn't naturally smart, but I was a hard worker. And when I was a senior in college, I was introduced to Adderall, which is a prescription stimulant. And it literally was the perfect drug for me. And I then developed a 10-year addiction to it. So a decade of my life, from age 21 to 31, I spent addicted to this drug that I thought allowed me to be perfect, which I thought made me worthy. And so continuing to seek this external validation to feel enough and to feel worthy. And no one knew. Everyone thought that I had the perfect life on the outside because I was climbing the corporate ladder. I was extremely successful. I was thin, achieving, and doing all the right things, and had, the resume and looked good on paper and all of that. And so when I was 31, a series of events happened, and I realized I couldn't live my life that way anymore. My tolerance to Adderall had increased. I was spending all my time trying to get the drug. I was a slave to it, and I wasn't living. I was actually dying on the inside, just not fulfilled, and constantly trying to attain the drug. And so when I was 31, a series of events happened. I ran out of the drug, and I just realized I can't live my life this way anymore. And so I got sober. I drove myself to rehab and then did outpatient therapy. And I've been sober for a little over 4 years today.
Congratulations. Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so my story is really about doing scary things.
Yeah.
Sean, were you going to ask something? Sorry.
Oh, I was thinking about, maybe you were going there, but just when you had to go into rehab, you had to talk to your boss, and that was very scary for you. So is that where you're going?
Yeah. So, I talk about in my story just, letting fear be your compass, and all of the major change and growth that has happened in my life has been by getting intentionally uncomfortable and doing really scary things. And so, when I realized I needed to go to rehab, I was working at this high-powered law firm. I was the director of a department, and I was going to have to ask for time off to go to rehab. I'm telling you, that was like the scariest conversation, one of the scariest conversations of my life. And it was one of those things, like when I got through it, I was like, okay, if I can get through that conversation, I can get through anything. But I had to sit down with my boss and tell him that I'm an Adderall addict and to ask him for time off. And it's funny, so many times we worry and we have all this anxiety, and what we think is going to happen is always scarier than the reality of the situation. And had I not had that conversation, I may not have gone to rehab. I may not be right today. And so it's about being intentionally being intentional with your life, but doing scary things so that you grow.
So I'm guessing that you had told others before your boss that you were going to be going into rehab, or had you?
Yeah. So I had admitted to my mother that I was addicted to the drug, and I actually, and my boyfriend at the time. And so they knew. And then obviously the counselors at the rehab facility, but I hadn't really told a whole lot of people.
Right.
And, you know, for the 10 years that I was addicted to Adderall, my profession was my identity because I was so good at it. And I was so successful that was my identity. So truly having to, you know, those two things meet, my addiction and my work, and having to let them know that I had this problem was really a difficult thing for me to do and to come to terms with.
Right. So what was the scariest thing about the conversation with your boss? Was it the fear of losing your job, or what was
I think just the fear of the unknown. I think honestly, the judgment, like what they're going to think of me. Like I've been able to keep up this persona for so long of perfection. And now, you know, I'm not perfect. Great.
And that was huge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's huge.
So then when you got through with rehab, that was 2 weeks. Then what?
Yeah. So I got through rehab, and then my life basically for an entire year was work. And I went to meetings. So AA meetings, NA meetings, you name it. I just went to meetings and really focused on my sobriety. And it was a really good time for me to do that. I had been living in Kentucky, but I was in Alabama at that time. Too much backstory to go into. And so my friends were in another state. And so that allowed me to really focus on my sobriety. But the thing is that obviously when you start growing, you have to continue to do scary things and continue to grow. And the growth and the journey of self-love and self-worth is an ongoing journey. And so about 6 months into my sobriety, I developed an eating disorder. Because the issue from the very early stages, like my biggest thing was body shame and body issues. And so that was really the crux of the issue. And so for me, Adderall allowed me to be thin. So I removed the drug, but I had not removed the self-loathing and the body shame. And so it was like addiction whack-a-mole, right? You whack Adderall and then up pops an eating disorder. And so it was just like, it consumed my life just like the Adderall. I had a workout addiction. I ate, but I basically ate broccoli and chicken and I got down to a really low weight. And I realized, you know, after about 2 years into that and it consuming my life and stealing my joy, I realized, okay, I'm going to admit out loud that I have this eating disorder and I'm going to intentionally do something about it. And it's going to be scary.
Wow.
And then I was able to heal it. And, you know, the food body shame issue is an ongoing journey that I'm still healing, but it is nothing like it used to be.
So how did your coming to terms with perfectionism play in with all this? So I know that you had to admit that you weren't perfect to your boss, and that was super, super scary. So did you know already, like, you had this perfectionism thing? Was that something you already knew you had to deal with, or was that something that you discovered over the process when you were going through your rehab and your counseling and that sort of thing?
I would say that it was something I discovered as I became more aware and self-love and really realized that was. And I realized I had body issues, but I didn't realize it was like this idea of perfection. I would say I realized that probably maybe a few years ago, so maybe halfway into my sobriety. For me, I actually got really frustrated when I realized and admitted out loud that I had the eating disorder, because I just, you know, struggled with an addiction for 10 years.
Right.
And now I'm dealing with this. I was pissed. I was like, I just want this to be over with. I just want to be done.
And did it sneak up on you? I mean, was it all of a sudden kind of like when you realized you didn't have your Adderall, that you were like, oh my gosh, I don't have the drug. So was it a realization like that, like all at once, or did you kind of know going into it?
So when I got sober, I started working out a whole lot.
Okay.
And I started eating healthier, and nothing was working, because if you think about it, like for 10 years, I'd had a drug control my metabolism. So of course I'm going to gain some weight. It's natural. It's healthy. You know, my body's like, thank God.
Yeah.
You're feeding me, and I can, retain some of these calories, this fat.
Yeah.
It was just this, it's so amazing how we can think that we have to be thin and that our body has to be a certain size to be loved.
Mm-hmm.
I look back on my life and think about the diets that I've been on and the joy that it has stolen in my life.
Yeah. So at some point you shifted to where, your career just drastically shifted. You went from law firm to this crisis.
HR, and then, coaching.
So talk about that transformation.
Yeah. So, I've been working at I worked at 2 different law firms, and it was 24/7, and that had been my identity. And I was, on Adderall, and I, obviously got sober at the law firm as well too, at another law firm. But, I realized that, as I started getting sober, my work was no longer my 100% identity. Like, I was a human being too. Like, I didn't need work to make me feel whole necessarily. Like, I wanted to find my purpose. And so for me, my quality of life was actually more important than my work. And so I was like, you know what, this is an opportunity for me to change careers, because I don't want to be working for lawyers for the rest of my life. No offense to lawyers, but I was done working with them. I'd worked with them for 8.5 years. So I was like, you know what, HR kind of sounds interesting, because I want to be a CEO of a company someday. I had no idea I was going to do coaching. And so I moved back to Kentucky and got a job as a director of HR for a landscaping company. And I was in charge of coaching and mentoring and training. And so then I became a certified coach, because I realized they wanted me to coach, but I needed formal training.
Okay.
And so that process, the formal coaching certification process, I started coaching women on the side. And then they started paying. And then I was like, this is my life's purpose. Like, I am meant to help women break through their crises. I'm meant to help women learn to love themselves and know their self-worth, and take them from I can't to I can, and help them do really scary things that help them grow and achieve their dreams.
So it was that point, that transition wasn't really a crisis thing. It was more of a knowing inside yourself. That you discovered that through your education with this education and all that. So did you have a client base when you jumped ship? Did you have? Okay.
And it was funny because I never, it was literally this time. So I left my full-time job in April of this year. So April 2018.
Okay.
So recently.
Yeah.
And this was not something I thought I was going to do. When I became a coach, I figured I would work at large companies and be an internal leadership coach. And so it just kind of all happened organically. There were a few books I read. Actually, You Are a Badass by Jen Sincero really changed me. And then You Are a Badass at Making Money helped me really feel like financially I could take this leap. Yeah. And so those are the 2 books that really changed my life. And so just through those books and just some self-discovery, I realized, okay, I'm going to go out on my own. And so I was able to secure a corporate client, and then I had a few individual clients, and then it was really just about taking the leap and having faith.
And you work with organizations. You said corporate, but I know that you work with individuals as well as corporations. So was your HR kind of what led into that, the corporations?
No, I just did one-on-one coaching. I think maybe having been an HR director gave me more credibility.
Yeah.
But for me, it was just relationships. So there were a few people that I knew in the community, and then they let me coach their employees. And for me, it's more of the female individual focused, which is where I'm transitioning. So yeah.
Okay. And so talk to me about your clients now. Who comes to you?
Yeah.
You're a crisis expert. So who comes to you? Crisis, you said.
Yeah. So the woman who is attracted to me is the woman who is about to turn 40, who just turned 40. And I have other clients of different, ages, but generally speaking, that is the woman that is attracted to me. And it's the woman who, it's this coming of age, this age change that has woken them up and realized oh my gosh, what have I been doing for the past 40 years? Why have I been stuck in this job or this unhappy marriage, or I'm going through the motions. I'm living in overwhelm. I never take time for myself. My health, I haven't taken seriously. And so it's this crisis, if you will, and it's kind of woken them up, and they're like, I'm ready to rewrite the next 40 years.
I see.
And I'm ready to turn this crisis into an opportunity. And so that's what it is. A crisis isn't something that should be looked at as bad. It's actually an opportunity. You can say, oh my God, thank you for the wake up call. And I'm going to change my life. And so I hold people's hands. I hold up the mirror, and then I hold their hand through change.
Amazing. And you have a certain system that you want to talk about your system, like people?
Yeah. So thanks, Sean. So the system that I use, it really is based on the person, but there are different steps. There's a step-by-step process that I use, but again, it's personalized for the individual.
Okay.
I go through awareness, perspective, and then action. And awareness is really looking at the person, the woman's limiting beliefs and what she's been tolerating in her life, and what's been holding her back. So really, like, what is that foundation that's really been holding you back from achieving those things that you want to achieve and living those big dreams and being happy and fulfilled? And also doing like a values assessment. So let's look at what you value and how well you're living your values, because a lot of times we value things and then we're only living it here. So there's a huge gap typically between how well what our values are and how well we're living it. And that's why we feel out of alignment. And that's why we have a hard time making decisions, because we're not living in alignment with our values. So really identifying that. And then we move on to the perspective, which is the mindset piece, because I'm a big believer that it all happens with the mind. And obviously taking aligned action, but truly like affirmations and your thoughts create your reality. So it's making slight changes in your language. Like, what are the words you're using? What are the things you're saying to yourself?
Right.
If it's like the idea that whether you can or can't is up to you. If you think you can't do something, well, you can't. And if you think you can, you can. So it's about making a major, like a very profound mental shift and creating those, what is your morning routine? Are you doing gratitude? What are those things? And really creating this like mindset discipline for the individual, and then getting into massive action, which is the action, getting going.
So you do a lot of self-exploration, these things like, reflecting on your values and that sort of thing. It's all stuff that is in us, but not so, we don't necessarily take time to think about those. And so you really help facilitate that really deep exploration to figure out what is it that is out of alignment.
Right.
And then you once you do that, you take action and help them to get over the crisis and achieve whatever goals. Great. Okay. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
So is there anything that you want to say to your ideal client, the person that's watching this, that is maybe thinking, ooh, that sounds kind of like could be.
I think for me, what I suggest is, I am a life coach certified, but I hired my first life coach in July of last year. And that is when all of the massive change happened in my life. When I was, I'd seen therapists before, but there was something different about a coach and the forward movement and the action and the accountability. Yes. And so if there's anything that I can tell anyone, hire a coach. Find the person that is right for you. And like, there's something about when you invest in yourself, when you make a financial commitment to yourself, because money is energy, that the universe is like, oh, you're really serious about this. And things will start changing for you. Like, my life opened up in ways that I could never have imagined. Like, I never thought going into that life, I didn't think I was going to start my own business. Like, that was not in my line of sight. I was not, maybe considered it, but it wasn't something that I really was even focused on. And here I am, like less than a year later, having left, the corporate full-time job to be an entrepreneur. And so for me, it's, find someone the person that resonates with you, hire them now. Do not wait. Life is short. It is the most precious thing you have, and you need to be intentional with your life so that you can live your best life.
That is beautiful. It's so true. And it is true that the action you take with a coach is it just moves you so much quicker than, not that there's anything wrong with therapy, and I've done therapy myself, but there is something about having somebody by your side that's helping you kind of take that next action. It moves things along much quicker.
Right.
So I know you have a free gift for us. Would you like to share what that is and how they can get that?
Yeah.
So started?
So, if you go to my website, it's vitalebuford.com/fearless. And it is 5 steps from fearful to fearless. And it's 5 steps that I use with clients to walk them through fear. So I'm not going to go through the 5 steps. You have to download it, get it. But because fear and walking through fear has made such a profound impact on my life, and I believe it is like the game changer when we can really step into our fear with courage and confidence, that we really experience massive shifts. And so, yeah, that's my free gift. It's 5 steps to go from fearful to fearless.
Yeah, I've been thinking a lot about fear. I just got back from that trip from New York, and there's all these, it was just little fears, but it was like, how do I get from point A to point B?
Right.
And each time I did that, I had this little breakthrough, just felt like, oh, I had a little confidence, And I'm really interested now in science because I went to this conference. I literally learned nothing, but it opened my mind to so much. And I believe within myself that it was all that stepping out of my comfort zone and all those small little action steps of overcoming little fears. And I came back just like, literally, I feel like a different person from the experience. And I technically learned nothing, but I feel like it just, opens up so much. So I just believe so much in that. I feel like.
Right. Yeah, those little things, it's like action leads to confidence, which leads to more action. So it's like the more you can step, outside your comfort zone and get uncomfortable, and just even little things build into bigger things. Mm-hmm. So yeah.
Thank you so much. Is there any last thing you want to say about your story? Or?
That's it.
That's it. All right. Well, thank you so much, Vitale.
Yeah. Thank you, Sean, so much.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.